Hey everyone, welcome to episode 106 of the Ceres podcast. I'm your host Stelios and the founder and director of the Ceres Pure Food Innovation. We have no updates for this episode. Again, no online updates that is. So, like I said, where possible, I'd like to keep the introductions short and sweet. I know they can get a bit long. But take a second to click share on any of our social media feeds. That's the only thing I'd ask really. It helps others find us. And chances are, if you're listening to it because you like it, then others want to listen to it too. As you may have noticed, we've started slotting in these ads at the beginning of the podcast. We will never insert ads into the middle to break the conversation. We hope that's cool with you. It gives us a chance to highlight what we do, but also gives our supporters a chance to highlight what they do too. It might seem boring, but you know what? Who doesn't love a good gravy? I know I love a good gravy. There's no reason why you should be using a subpar gravy with weak colour and no depth of flavour. The Ceres gravy mix is a proper gravy. It's bold and deep with a proper beefy flavour. The Ceres gravy will get your customers coming back for more. Like all of our solutions, the gravy is ready to use, but you can also use it as a base and add whatever you want. For example, minced beef and onion gravy, make steak pies, all sorts. You can do whatever. Sky's the limit. Do as you would with any gravy. Like all Ceres products, we've put together loads of recipes to help you get the best from them. Get your Ceres gravy today from worldofceres.com/shop or talk to your wholesaler about Ceres products. This podcast has been brought to you in association with industry titans Giovanna Grossi and Amanda Affia of Source Intelligence Mystery Guest Audit. Well known for their commitment to the hospitality sector and support those working in it. Their business also offers a range of bespoke training programs tailored to your operations' individual training needs. Source Intelligence delivers head of department and management geared training days that not only enhance the team building across your most senior employees, but also equips them with the tools to motivate and develop their own teams. In addition, they offer one-to-one mentoring style sessions targeted at individuals across your team who would benefit from some extra focus and attention. Their newly built online audit process, which they use for their mystery guest visits, has been designed to give clients an honest, reliable, bespoke and commercially focused report with suggested solutions and advice on the next step to resolve issues, increase profitability and enhance your business's reputation. Now, who can say no to all of that? To find out more about their mystery guest visits or training sessions, give Giovanna or Amanda a call or visit sourceintelligence.com. Today's guest is Conrad Brunton from Tonic Talent. I've known Conrad for some time. A few years back, he set up a fish and chip shop in Birmingham with his mate Andy. Both were really dedicated to crafting a real great product. I still remember the day they came to see me when I was working at my dad's fish and chip business, and they came in this huge Range Rover. It was a bit like the film Layer Cake, but not a yellow Range Rover or orange. I can't remember what that was. I think it was yellow. Fast forward to today, and Conrad has been through the mill, really. He talks about going bankrupt and, the hardship there. And, now he's got a very successful business called Tonic Talent. It's a recruitment company specifically for finding great staff for great restaurants and great hotels and great businesses. Really specialist. So to find out more about Conrad and Tonic Talent, visit tonictalent.com. I really enjoyed my time with Conrad. It was great to catch up with him. It was great to get a feel for what he's also doing. And I love the fact that he really cares about the industry he's in. I hope you enjoy this episode. It will be great to get him on again. I really feel like he has a finger on the pulse and he really does sort of explain the situation and what his sort of thoughts are for the future. I hope you enjoy. Conrad, welcome to the Ceres podcast, mate.
Thanks, Dad.
Oh, finally, got you here.
I know, we've been talking about it for a while, haven't we?
Well, there has been a global pandemic in between.
There has. That's got in the way of a few things.
So tell us all about Tonic Talent. Tell us about that first before we get started.
Yeah, of course. So Tonic Talent is a hospitality and catering recruitment company that I started 5 years ago. So I was always in hospitality. from an early age, from the age of about 14. I started my own business, which is where you and I got to know each other. I'd studied hospitality at the College of Food here in Birmingham. So it absolutely was everything that I loved. And unfortunately, the business that I started, we had to fold. The economy at the time was not great. We didn't put it in the best of locations as well, and we had to fold that business. So I sort of reevaluated my time in hospitality, but still really wanted to do something that allowed me to use my knowledge and my passion for the industry. So sort of found my way into recruitment, and then, recruitment for hospitality was sort of the logical thing to do, using my network. I don't think it's done so well on the whole. I think when you go to a party and you tell people that you're a recruitment consultant, you get shoved over with the estate agents, And so, I don't know, we just tried to look at it. I'd been a candidate and I'd been a client for recruitment companies previously. And I suppose I just sort of looked at it as anyone would with any industry and say, well, what would I want? And it's quite basic, really. What you'd want. You want someone to deliver on what they tell you they're going to do, whether they be a restaurant, nice fresh food, whatever it might be. Just deliver on your promises, really. And yeah, we get to know our clients really, really well, like inside and out. So we'll go and spend time in their business, learn a little bit about the culture of a specific site, as well as, of course, the values of that business itself. We really get to know our candidates as well. So
I've got to admit, I have two sort of thoughts about recruitment. One is very similar to what you just said about you get shoved over there with your estate agents. On LinkedIn, there is about 5,000 different titles for the word recruitment. Yeah. Like every other person that adds me, sales talent manager, sales. It's just like, just say you're recruitment. I'm still going to say no. Actually, you are probably the only recruiter I have on LinkedIn. Because it's intoxicating. They're everywhere. And I realised why, because there is a serious hustle. Yeah, I don't mean it. I don't mean that.
No.
I mean, you're hard workers.
Yeah,
recruitment is solid graft. I've got two brother-in-laws in recruitment. I sort of respect it a bit more.
It's an industry that you very much get out what you put in. I think across all different areas of recruitment, be that finance, IT, what we do in hospitality. It's something that the more you put in, the more you get out. Yeah. And I think there's varying degrees of that. But you do hear about some real so-and-so, shall we say, that give everyone a bad name. Putting people in for a certain amount of time and then pulling them out again, that's just terrible. Oh, really? I've heard about people, they've done their 12, 14, 15 weeks and they pull them out of that business, they put them in another one.
Yeah, well, surely the candidate doesn't look good, though, in that.
Some people are a bit mercenary, I would say. It's for us, it's just completely alien. That is, completely
It's
alien.
Modern slavery, though, isn't it? What you're doing, you're selling people.
Yeah.
I say that to my brother. My brother-in-law's from Bristol, and he works for Reed, and he does recruitment for, I guess it's the finance industry, I guess.
Yeah.
And I always say to him, so you're from Bristol and you do modern slavery selling? And he's like, no. He goes, they come to us.
There's going to be a statue soon.
We'll just knock him over. No, he's quite cool. But no, I think knowing my brother-in-law has opened my eyes a little bit to recruitment.
Yeah.
I think, because I didn't really know a lot about it before.
Yeah.
It was just someone that just spammed me on LinkedIn. But I think now it is literally like you can see the hustle, the hard work that goes into it. And he says sometimes, well, if you've got a quiet January, you probably didn't put the effort in October.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's like anything, isn't it? You can drive a car. It could be an entry-level car. It could be mid-range, or there are cars that are worth more than houses. There are recruitment companies that are going to be charging base level. You're going to get base service. There's going to be mid-range, and there's going to be people that are operating at the top end of the market, headhunting. They're being incredibly knowledgeable about their candidates and their clients. And I could list a number of hospitality recruitment businesses that I look at, and they are absolutely fantastic. They're thought leaders. They're very much trying to disrupt the status quo.
It's interesting because you've managed to make this. So my brother-in-law always tells me a lot of people think it's easier to go do it on their own. But you've made that switch. You actually did make it successful. So what were the challenges did you find?
I suppose building a brand from scratch and building trust. We've tried to position ourselves, I suppose, through our passion and our knowledge as a bit of an expert within the industry. We started the first networking group in hospitality here in the Midlands, which is called CHEF. Stands for Catering Hospitality Education Forum, just bringing people together. There was no Institute of Hospitality at that time, which was a shame here in the Midlands, and that's now come along, and we're big supporters of that as well. It's like any business. Again, you start a restaurant, how do you build your credibility? You serve great food, you give great service, and you do it over time consistently.
There's a long pipeline, isn't
there?
it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think this alludes So I think this is going to come around in a lot of our conversation, actually. I think you can't just, it's almost like tending to a garden, isn't it? You put your seeds down, take out the weeds, prune this, do that. And the weather comes out, it rains, then the sun comes out and it grows. And this is, you go through these cycles. And I think a lot of people probably just think, well, I've started my recruitment company or my back company or whatever it is.
Totally.
Where's my customers?
Yeah, totally. We've got a client, gastropub company, and they've got like 3 really simple sort of values. And one of them is give a shit every day. Don't matter what you do, does it? Don't matter what you do. You're a shoe shiner, you got a fish and chip shop, world we know, you got a restaurant, you got a recruitment company, you got a back company. Give a shit every day. We're constantly looking at what we can do. We talk about it all the time. How can we be better? Tiny tweaks, marginal gains. How can we be better?
I remember reading a book about Steve Jobs, and it said when he was younger, him and his dad built a cupboard, and his dad put a lot of effort into the back of the cupboard that no one was ever going to see. And he says to him, Dad, like, why do this? And he goes, because I know.
Yeah.
I know, and they said, like, that's why if you ever open an Apple computer now, like, especially when they were bigger before, let's say, but it always looked pristine. And he said, a lot of effort went into that because when people open it, they're like, oh,
be the best you can be in whatever you do.
My nephew came to help me one day. We're packing off samples, had like 50 boxes to do, and he's been sacked now. My son does it.
Cheaper labour.
To be fair, it is the same labour, same price. But I remember just packing samples. I fold them in, put them in nicely, and put a little handwritten note saying thanks if you need anything. Here we are. And my nephew was just lobbing them in, and I was just looking at it. I said, "You've got to go. You've got to go." And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "If you can't have care over doing something like this, then you're not going to make it anywhere."
Yeah.
And my son, he knows. He puts it in nicely, and he's only 7. but it's 50p a box.
I know what you told me what you're saving up for. So it's true though.
Yeah.
When I started the fish and chip shop, you were a massive help. We went over and saw Mark and his brother over in Cambridge, and we benchmarked against the best. And goodness me, 18 months, we finished number 3 in the UK, best in England. It's one of the proudest moments of my life.
Yeah.
We didn't know anything about fish and chips before that. Richard Branson, you look at the different industries he goes into and he quickly can compete with the best. And of course that takes some money, but that's analysing every day, those marginal gains. What can we do better? What do we like about what company X, Y, and Z are we doing? What would you do differently to company A, B, and C? And actually, I think I like the challenge of something new. There's part of me that would quite like to diversify and do some other bits and bobs, really.
Yeah.
But that first initial challenge, I think, of a business is that first sort of 2 to 3 years. That once you're over that and you're kind of like, okay, we've survived global pandemic as well. I think that's the real fun time.
How was the first part? Well, actually, there's many parts to COVID. Yeah. So give us your COVID story.
I was really good at filling the recycling bin. I became brilliant at that, like a lot of other people. No, it was incredibly tough, obviously, and I know. I'm not painting my picture as darker than anyone else's, because when you and I sat down today, I said I don't know anyone that would tell you that they just had a breeze of a time, even if their businesses were. So I know people who did side hustles and did really, really well out of them, or they had a business that was able to diversify and did really, really well. So it was obviously for hospitality recruitment, it just fell off the cliff. We were doing really well. We'd built to an excellent point. And of course, it just fell off the cliff. And there was no real diversification for us. We do permanent recruitment. I looked at, bakers were highly in demand. We tried to look at different things, but obviously as we came out of lockdown 1 and then we went into lockdown 2, and it was just the to in and fro in. And I felt it for the industry that I'm passionate about as well. Hospitality didn't know whether it was coming or going. And look, I'm not an overly political person. No one had a blueprint for what happened, so I don't really blame the government for this and that. I just think none of us knew. You can't tell me anyone else would have done a better job of being in power, any of the other political parties. So I hate when people get straight to politics. Don't get me wrong, I think there were things that were handled badly.
Of course, yeah.
Lying and such, to the British public, but that's what they seem to do. So anyway, moving on from that. It was what I saw happening to the industry that really made me sad. Again, it was great to see people very quickly adapt. Brad over at Carter's, he was doing food boxes second week. really quick on it. And that was good to see. It was nice to see how people opened up their restaurants as like retail spaces or whatever. And obviously, the delivery market got to a point where it's never going to go away now, is it? That delivery market is absolutely massive. The rise of cloud kitchens, we've seen through it. So, yeah, it was a tough time. We rode it out. I know people who had a really bad time. And I know some people, like I said, he did well from it. So I suppose I'll put us somewhere kind of in the middle. We're still here.
Yeah, I think, look, on a personal note, it's not nice having nothing to do. Highly driven person. It's obvious. I've known you for a long time. I can see that. You're very motivated. And when you've got nothing to motivate you, that's a bit like, oh.
It is. Yeah. And we didn't really know. If I'd have known it was going to be basically a year, I'd have probably gone and got a driving job, done something. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to have a couple of weeks off. I'm going to fill those cracks in the wall with what I've been needing to do and get the garden.
There's one guy, have you ever heard of Meat Liquor?
Yeah, of course.
The guy that started Meat Liquor, Yanis Papoutsis.
Yeah.
I spoke to him on the podcast, and just before we got him on the podcast, I was like, oh, what are you doing? He goes, I came to Portugal. I said, all right. He goes, yeah. He goes, just as lockdown happened, and he goes, I've just decided to stay here.
Really?
He's still there now.
Really?
He just stayed. He goes, I don't know why. I had a feeling this was going to go longer. And he goes, I thought I might as well be out in the sun.
Wow.
Yeah. And
he's just relocated his life.
Think pretty much.
Good for him.
Yeah. And he just goes, we like it here.
Yeah.
And actually I've got to check in with him. But yeah, just imagine just getting up. Catch you later.
Yeah.
And it's like he said he's still doing his work because he's got a computer and internet. So the work that his responsibilities that he was doing, I'm probably making it sound really simple. But, he's still doing his bit.
Yeah. I mean, I must admit, I think the way of working and the way that's changed, although, it's massively detrimental to the city and such like, I do think, it's a better thing. I know people that would be driving the length of the country for meetings. That's not good for the environment, is it?
No.
These people who've got 4-litre, whatever, Range Rovers, that's no good.
Yeah.
So, now you just have that quick kind of meeting.
Well, I read something the other day and it said that after proper analysis, that Earth actually got hotter over COVID.
Really?
Yeah. So they were saying they were doing we're going to check models to see if it cools down or whatever because no one was travelling as much.
Yeah. What was that due to, did they say?
Not yet. Not said yet.
Well, but I mean, I remember seeing all the nature coming back into areas, swans coming back into Venice.
My driveway.
But it was a time that no one could have predicted. It's just bizarre. Life will always be known as. It's it's our world war, isn't it?
I guess
it's the world war of our generation.
Shows how weak we are in some ways, don't it?
Yeah. It's like pre-COVID, after COVID. And I've got to be honest, I'm glad that I spent, 38 years of my life pre-COVID because I do think things will be different. I do think things will be different for the long term. And I don't know whether that's a positive or
I hope
negative.
not. I hope not negatively because I've got a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I think, if it's like, they've got to wear, I never liked him wearing a mask. I said to the wife, I don't want him wearing a mask. If you go shopping, if you want to wear one, obviously you wear one, but he should not wear one. Because I think psychologically we're messing with them. Ain't it weird that when you wear a mask, you struggle hearing people? It's because we miss all the other vital cues.
Of course it is.
And I think you start doing that to a kid, it's just messing them around, man.
Yeah.
So I remember my sister-in-law does a lot of embroidery and stuff like that. And she made one for him and I was like, she ain't wearing that. It's nice, but he's not wearing that.
Yeah.
And he wanted to wear one because he thought he was being like us. And I was like, no, you don't have to wear one. I'm only wearing one because I'm being told to wear one.
Sure. Have you been to a wedding? I went to a wedding last weekend and it was just like it was always.
Oh, that's good.
Dancing and,
Was it crazier than ever though?
I mean, this wedding actually wasn't, they're listening in, but it was just lovely.
Yeah.
It was really
just
lovely.
nice. Yeah, I suppose maybe
and that bit of normality now. I think the football as well. We had the football as we were coming in and unlocking everything. And let's be honest, I ain't social distancing when England are just.
I was just going to say, expecting the British public to come out of lockdown carefully when the football's on is like just booting a door open, isn't it?
It's never going to happen.
Pub, football. Weather was astonishing.
I know.
Come on. It was just not going to happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But no, it's interesting though. But so now moving forward today, what's business looking like today? What's your biggest challenges today, would you say?
I mean, I think candidate generation has always been the biggest challenge for any, recruitment company, quality candidates, certainly in the area of the hospitality industry and catering industry that sort of we service, that quality candidate. But I mean, as we know, that now, hospitality, the pool of talent in hospitality is shallower than it ever has been before. There's a number of factors for that. I think that Brexit put a lot of people from the EU who are working here on the back foot, and then the pandemic has sent them home. Hopefully people will come back. I think that the government could do a little bit to ease that movement of labour back into the industry. I heard figures like 750,000 Polish people alone from the hospitality industry haven't yet returned. That's massive. That's absolutely massive. It's a global problem, though. I think a lot of people retrained due to the pandemic. If you weren't someone who was incredibly passionate about hospitality, and let's say you're a chef or product development, someone who's a restaurant manager, through and through, it's in your blood. You don't want to go and do anything else. If you did go and do something else, you've come back.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people who happily have, maybe they weren't earning a great deal. We've spoken about some of the sort of perceived or poor working conditions in hospitality, no paid overtime. I know people who are working at really large event centre here in Birmingham at the ICC, and they've gone to work in supermarkets. They're running rings around people who've worked in supermarkets before, because, the shift finishes at 4. You finish at 4. That's alien. We spoke about paid overtime and working conditions, even just, let's be honest, a pension now is obviously a prerequisite for employment, but anyone working in hospitality for years didn't have a pension. It wasn't like an industry that even gave those. So I don't know why it's just always been perceived as, it's what you do until you get a job. What are you going to do? What are you going to do then? People would say that to me. So, you work in hospitality, okay? So you're managing a pub. Like, what are you waiting to do? What did you train to do? Well, I went to college to learn how to do this. Actually, it's strange, really, isn't it? We talk about people, especially from the continent. Being a waiter is like a career. They like career waiters in France and Spain and Italy, and it's what they absolutely love to do.
Why is it we don't have that here in the UK?
It's looked down upon, isn't it? For one reason or another. I don't really know why.
I remember Steve that used to work for Liam, Steve Loughlin.
Of course.
He said his theory was that the British like to be served. They've got this imperialistic mentality. So they go to restaurants to be served because they're British. And it made me think somewhat that, could that be at play a little bit here? Like, is it this Britishness that, we want a proper job and we'll eat out and,
I don't know. Honestly, that's, I really like Steve. Obviously, he's the secretary at the Midlands Institute. He's just moved on from Liam's place. Fantastic job. It's an interesting thought that. I don't know. I've never given that any thought. I think
it's mostly because we just don't have, we've never had that cafe culture. We didn't have that restaurant culture. We touched on it a touch sooner than what I expected. But, I've been saying this for a while now. The definition of restaurants is changing because we were saying earlier, your dad and my dad went to a restaurant once a month. Our mums to make them feel nice, or maybe some work gig or whatever. And, it's a big deal. Went out to a nice restaurant. Now, on a bad week, you've been twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So totally. You think,
like you said, it's fuel.
It's fuel now. We're going to eat. And, if I took my boys to Nando's or Pizza Express or Miller & Carter or a local place, that was just because we wanted to. And if I took the wife to Adam's for a treat, that's a treat. That is nice.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's that frequency of usage. Absolutely.
So how does a nation ramp that up? How do you do that?
I think maybe it goes back also to the celebration of food and families coming together to eat in the way that I suppose people do on the continent, in the EU, etc. It's much more of a celebration. You see groups of young guys just going out and having a coffee. In France, in Italy, in Spain, you wouldn't get a group of 15-year-old lads going out and grabbing a coffee together here, would you?
My nephew's 15. I've told his mum what he does. Yeah, it is very different. Again, it's that culture. It's different. In Cyprus, you don't go out until 10 o'clock at night. I think maybe it's the heat. The siesta changes everything. You lose 2.5, 3 hours in a day. So it's sort of like everything gets pushed on. But we just don't have that in the UK. We have a very different work ethic. The work ethic in Europe is a bit different to the. It
is. I mean, we could fill 3 or 4 podcasts talking about the different sort of nuances around that, the industry itself and why it's different in different countries, I suppose. But it is, it's something that it's not going to be a quick fix. We've got to make it we've been banging the drum for a long time, people, about making hospitality, making catering a viable career.
So what do you see? What do you identify as, well, or at least what have you been told by people that you're moving around, candidates? What are the biggest issues for them? What are their most pressing concerns? Forget what people think is the most pressing. What's brought up the most?
Development is something that I think is probably the most underrated point within the role. So I think people always go, they're moving for some more money, or less hours. Actually, it's proven that people want to learn and develop in their roles. That doesn't mean that a young chef is a chef de partie. When am I going to be a sous chef? What are we teaching that chef de partie? Are they learning how to prep a whole turbot? Are they learning how to make a fish stock, out of bones? Are they learning some skills? That's difficult in some of the businesses we're talking about there. I mean, how do you develop a chef in Nando's? You teach them how to hot hold the chicken, how to do it. It's so basic. We've got a lot of restaurants now that are like that, they're quite formulaic. Money, obviously, people will always move for money. Working conditions of hours. Very few people are paying overtime. I mean, when will that start? Soon? Will they not opt out of the time directives of working? Staff food is a really big thing. Are we feeding people? Even brands will say, they can have anything they want off the menu. I remember working in a branded restaurant and them saying that. Well, you do 5 shifts a week. The last thing you want to do after the 5th day is eat something off that menu. I think that it's about putting yourself in your employee's shoes. It's about talking to them, isn't it? What do you want? It's about listening to the voice of your team. Think about staff areas. We were talking about Steve Jobs earlier. And the back of the back of the cupboard. Think about your staff areas. We clean and we make our front of house areas pristine for our customers. Staff areas, just one of the last crappy areas. Why? Why would you do that? I don't know. I think that it's got to the employers of choice have been looking at it for a while, and I think that a lot of people are starting to really stand up and look at exactly. We talk about customer journey, don't we? Talk about our customer's journey, be that in a chip shop, be that in a restaurant. What was your customer journey like from booking till when they leave and then pulling off the car park being clean, everything. What about your staff's journey? What about your staff's journey throughout the day, throughout the week? How was the interactions with those members of the team? The food that they ate, the bit of development that they had within that day. So did we just teach them about a special and we spoke about where all of the ingredients are from? We just taught them something, Did they have everything that they needed? The number of chefs I speak to, and bit of equipment goes in the kitchen, and it's a month before that bit of equipment is replaced. What's that about? Do you know what I mean? What does that say to that chef? I don't know. I think that there's a lot of things you could look at.
But if you change that culture, you could reverse all of that damage, couldn't you? So if you said, we have got a nice resting area, we've carved out a bit of space for everyone to go and have a nice cigarette, to, not get crapped on by the birds or the rain or whatever, you need to have X amount of time for break. You can't, if you've done over 50 hours, 60 hours, and again, that sounds a lot to most people, but in hospitality, that's not a lot,
60 hours, within hospitality, again, unfortunately, is something you do hear a lot. I personally think that people should be targeting 55 is max, targeting 50 now. And if you have to pass that cost on to the customer, then you have to pass that cost on to the customer, because people just won't do it anymore. And giving them like a weekend off in 4. So you have enough members of the team that you give them 1 weekend off in 4, and then they can go to Uncle Bob's 60th or go to the occasional wedding, because they can mix it between themselves. But when you're missing those important things year in, year out, it starts to erode at your passion unless you just love it. My bankruptcy was the reason I came out of the industry. But I remember turning up at 11 o'clock at night to a best mate's wedding. That's not cool.
Get a couple of hours.
That's not cool, is it?
Yeah.
So
no, I think ultimately, this is the issue. I understand that, in order to work in hospitality, you have to pick up the tab and be unhospitable, because you've got to make everybody else's experience good. You've got to take got to burden that.
Yeah.
But how long for, like you say, one of the things with wages is that, it can be profitable. Don't get me wrong. It can be hard being in the industry too. But if you find your formula and you get it right, it should be somewhere passed on down the line, because those people aren't going to hang about. They're just going to say, you know what, anecdotal, obviously, but over the first lockdown in COVID, I met a chef that came to my door with a Tesco delivery, and just chatting. And he says, I don't think I'll go back. And I've never seen him since, but his words were then, I don't think I'll go back. And he just says, I'm earning £14 an hour. I'm out there doing 42 hours a week. He goes, when I've done overtime, I get it. He goes, I don't have to argue with my line manager or my boss. It's automated.
Yeah.
He goes and, I'm in the car, listen to a podcast or whatever, or music, depending on what I feel like. So I think this is what we're up against.
Totally.
We're up against people that have been in the industry for 10, 15 years and thinking, can I be bothered? And on the flip side, you've got people coming through that don't want to work as hard as those guys did.
Yeah, I do think there's an element of that. I mean, I've still got very close links with the College of Food here, where I studied. It's a fantastic institution. And I think that, look, don't get me wrong, there's great young people coming into the industry all the time. But it does seem to be, we're going to sound like those two grumpy old men now, but, a slightly different work ethic of Gen Zs, Gen Ys. Is that because they expect everything now? They're just used to this instant kind of culture. I know this might sound like a stupid example, but do you remember an album coming out that you really wanted, and you'd walk into town and you'd go to the shop on the Monday and it'd be in the store? It's completely alien to them, It's just, whoop, bang, there it is.
Well, it's probably even worse for my son's generation. He's got everything. Because I've got everything folded into packages. I've got Disney Plus, I've got Apple Music. He doesn't have to... he'll just go up to Siri and say, play this, and it comes on. And there's none of this, But there's other things that you have to modify. There's other things you have to make them pay for and wait for.
Yeah.
And I always try and build in, even if it's artificial, I try building friction into their lives so they can see that actually I've had to wait for that or this because otherwise what's the point?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. We were talking before we came on and started the podcast about, parenting, and there's a lot of things I think, but a lot of the younger generation, I don't know, the work ethic and the passion for things as well seems to have slightly changed, just being passionate about things and being into something.
We joke about it, but I think there is a generation of people that do want to be YouTubers and Instagrammers and TikTokers, and I'm not making fun of them. It's alien to me. It's alien to me because I don't think I'd ever be that popular, But I do think that is something that is very appealing to that generation.
Yeah.
I spoke to a woman called Chloe Comby. She's an author and she wrote a book on Gen Z, and she says they want instant gratification. They'd work somewhere for less money where they feel like they're making a difference.
Really?
As in a global difference. So if they feel like they want to change the world, they're the generation that want to change the world. And that's why you see them, marching for certain things or, not having bioplastic, not having plastics and moving over to, they're very ethically based.
They are, the sustainability pieces.
And you think, well, why would they want to work in a real job then? And I don't mean if you work in an office, it's not a real job. I didn't mean that. I just mean in a way you're touching things and being on your feet all day.
Yeah.
So if you pair that with some chefs that aren't trained to be managers because they're good chefs, they're great with food, they're great with sourcing ingredients. They didn't really train to be leaders.
Yeah.
So, and I think genuinely, I don't think they're all Hitlers, because I think that's what everyone's portraying at the moment in the media. They're not. I think they've just learned how to do this. They've came through the ranks. They've learned from other chefs that really didn't get taught how to teach people.
Absolutely, yeah. It's kind of been passed down, and I think only really in the last sort of 5 to 10 years have we even questioned that status quo. And I think now we're really starting to push back against it. There's still some old school mentality, I think, when it comes to kitchen, certainly, and the hospitality industry, the wider hospitality industry, but kitchen, certainly. I think, there has to be a level of discipline in the kitchen. It has to be incredibly organised, certainly to be successful. If you go into a 2 or 3 Michelin star kitchen, it's like an army. They're like an army. They're so well drilled, each service. It's the consistency is quite something to see and behold. And unlike any other business, the level of consistency, I would say, and the sort of the heights that they hit every single service, every single dish. But you can do that without this old school mentality. I think I spoke about a chef who a lot of people here in Birmingham have sort of come through his kitchen, and he's very well renowned, and he's not a screamer and a shouter, and he doesn't kind of need to be. And I think that you can get respect. And don't get me wrong, I think that people should still be. We were talking before we came on about shouting at a member of your team, and it's almost getting to the point where you can't raise your voice. And I think we're in that danger of going too far as well, because some people react to that. Like if you're a football manager and you say you can't shout at your players, it's like, what?
See, when you were talking about that, I was just thinking about football, and like a friend of mine who is in hospitality, she's a writer for a magazine, and she, when the Tom Kitchen thing broke out, she says, there is still bad staff. She goes, I'm not defending Tom Kitchen. She goes, but there is still bad staff in the industry too.
Of course.
And you think, that can be overlooked somewhat. Like, my friend this morning, I told you the story. He was saying, like, he's got a sign in the window. He's not letting customers through the takeaway. He's got a sign in the window saying, if a customer wants to ask anything or a query or a complaint, just shout me from the back room. And the staff member doesn't. And it happens time after time. And you can't say anything to her. So he'll say, look, I've told you once, just can you come and find me? Okay. Does it again. And you're right. He just wants to bloody blow, but he can't. So we just say, look, tell her again. And it's just like, and nothing changes.
And that's someone, that, I don't know, it's bizarre, isn't it? Because you think to yourself, like, if I tell someone once, if I have to tell them twice, I'm a little bit like, okay, but, we're all human. You have to tell someone something 3 times. You get
Something's
pissed
wrong,
at that level, aren't you? You like, I'm running a business here, whatever.
Well, like I mentioned to you, I know someone that's a franchisee. She's got about 24 outlets now.
Yeah.
At McDonald's ones. And she says to me, we don't get enough credit for what we do for society as a company. And I says, why? She said, because we take people that have never worked anywhere. Their parents have never really told them off because they want to be their friends. And they've not really hit college yet. Schools don't really tell them off either. They come to us, they can't count, they can't they don't do anything. They don't start at 4, they turn up at 4:30. She goes, we have to do everything legally and obligingly and teach them. And yet, 2 years later, they go somewhere else, and people are happy to snap them up.
Yeah,
they
put the hard yards in.
Yeah, and you think, and also whilst they're there, they pay them above living wage too. Like my niece was 16, she was getting £7 an hour. Like, so they're actually paying them and training them.
Yeah,
So I remember we were looking for staff a few years ago when I was in the chip shops, and a girl came to work for us, and she'd worked at McDonald's. And, we had a really busy rush. It was her first shift. She was bang on. Like, you just watching her. She was just, like, really efficient. And then everything just stopped for a second, as it does. And then she goes out on her own, gets a bowl of water, and just starts cleaning down her section. And I looked down. I was like, Kim, I didn't say do that. Like, she goes, no. But she goes, at McDonald's, she goes, you never stop. She goes, we're ready for the next rush. Even if it doesn't come, we're just ready. Like, you've got to always be clean. Yeah. We didn't have time to do it then, obviously, but there's no excuse now.
Yeah.
And then she said a phrase that I didn't know until afterwards, until I read the book, and it was, if there's time to lean, there's time to clean.
Yeah.
And it just made me think she was indoctrinated into doing it the right way. And it's true. You're now quiet. There's no excuse. Whereas in most scenarios, everyone's just like, I'm going to go for a fag, boss. Anybody want a coffee? Whereas actually what she's saying is, we do that after we've done this.
Yeah. Yeah. TGI Fridays, I worked at TGI's when I was sort of 17, just turning 18. And they had all these theories that made you remember, that helped you to remember what you should be doing throughout your shift, etc. So they'd have the Porsche theory was the one you just got to be ready, always ready to go, like a Porsche 0 to 60. The swan theory was, you see a swan gliding across the water, but what you don't see is all the back of house, its feet, going absolutely. And little things like that time to lean, time to clean. There's some brands where things are instilled in you, and I think, again, it's. I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure if you went through a Nando's or something like that, it'd be very, very similar. I'm always very impressed with the service I get in a Nando's. I don't go very often, but these are kind of like young guys, and they obviously just love the brand, and they're like, "Wicked, I'm going to work at Nando's," but they seem to be invested in it.
I think Nando's does seem like the new McDonald's in terms of that they're quite trendy to work at. McDonald's, people probably turn their nose up at working at McDonald's. But once they're in, I think they realise it's actually quite good. Yeah. My niece, she was a bit like, I've got to go work at McDonald's. And then afterwards, she's like, actually, I really quite like it. Yeah. So I do think it's interesting. And I think, but they're also being paid very well.
Yeah.
So that actually makes people start to think, I'm not in a great kitchen. as in, I've not got the development and the learning, but I'm getting paid really well and I get overtime and I'm pretty happy with that. But wages, if restaurants have to start paying more, well, even anyone in hospitality, hotels, restaurants, if they have to start paying more wages, but they also have to start paying overtime, but they also need to reduce the amount of work hours that people do, which means they then need more work people.
Yeah.
So let's say, I don't know, if they've got a team of 10, you probably need a team of 16 to make up the difference.
Yeah.
Where do all these costs get pushed to?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, how much is the customer willing to take that hit of the increased costs? Because it can only be the customer. You can't turn around to your landlord and say, I've had to hire, 3 more people, so my labour budget has increased, so I need to pay you a bit less. No, absolutely not. Your ingredients probably over the last 2-3 years have gone up, I would imagine. It doesn't really matter what you make, sell. So it can only be passed on to the punter. So we've got to be prepared to pay a bit more. Now, if that means that some of the budget ranges have to charge more, then that's what they have to do, isn't it? I mean, the fact that you can get meals for £3 some places, that's pretty wrong, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
But the people that go there are happy with that. You think when you go to a Witherspoons, you expect, you order a chili in a Witherspoons, it's £3. You get £3 worth of chili. I'm probably as happy, given my expectation, my price, comparison as I would be if I'd have gone to, a rosetted restaurant and ordered a main course, because I've only paid £3. So it's one of them. It can only be passed on. It can only be passed on to the customer, can't it? It has to.
I think it has to be. And I think maybe this all needs to come out of the wash. And I think once it's all been sort of reset, but at some point, something's got to give, because people, you're saying there's a shortage of talent at the moment, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what has that done? Have you seen wages go upwards then because of...
Yeah, salaries have gone up big time. Yeah, absolutely. I would say expectation of salary of candidates has probably gone up 20% since pre-COVID.
That's pretty decent for the candidate.
It is. It's hard. I suppose from our side, we've got to educate our clients and say, if they can go to this restaurant and earn 34, I'd love you to tell me why. They should come to you for 30. Now, it could be that you give amazing staff food and you do less hours. And so those are other things that are going to make that position more attractive. But yeah, I think it's definitely pushed the salaries up.
The only downside, I think, with higher wages is the fact that, well, no, it's not the only downside. One downside is that as wages go up, the mediocrity level sort of rises with it, is that you have to pay a lot more to then get the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah.
Is that you're still paying, like you say, for example, 35 for someone that's all right. So if you want top dog, let's say, for whatever that job role is, it's 45, 44. So there is a lot of, that the skills aren't getting better, the people aren't better when wages go up. It just means that every Tom, Dick and Harry gets paid more.
Yeah.
And I guess that's great if you're the person, the candidate, or the employee.
Yeah.
But if you're the restaurant who's looking for a specific set of needs or good people, you've got to go through a lot of people before you find, but it's costing you more to do that.
And if your whole labour budget has increased by 20% across the board, which, say, given 18 to 24 months it will have done, that's a massive increase, isn't it? It's huge.
Apparently, and I might misquote this, but I spoke to a guy called Sean in Australia, and he helps restaurants as a consultant. And I think I should have probably checked it before, but I think in Australia, a restaurant's staff budget is 40-something%, 42%.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really high. Wages are really high in Australia.
That's crazy.
So one of the main arguments of Brexit, so if we look at this from a non-political point of view, one argument was from one side was that if we reduce immigration, staff wages go up. And everyone on the other side said, it's bullshit, it's not going to happen, it's lies. And it happened. Because actually when there's less people, there's less pool to work from.
Yeah, of course.
So obviously it depends which side of the fence you're on and whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
I don't even mean which side of the fence for Brexit. I actually mean whether you're an employee or an employer. That's what I actually mean.
Yeah.
So if you're an employee, you're getting, like you say, 20% more, give or take. Or at least bonuses. If you stayed at the job, you might get looked after more and so on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very difficult conversation because like anything, there's winners and losers.
Of course there is. Yeah, of course there is.
I do wonder if people would be happier to pay that money if the candidate quality was higher. I think they probably would.
Yeah, I think so. It's a funny market that I think will start to sort of even out, but it will be the next sort of 12 months, I think, that we see that. But yeah, I like to think that employers will be happy to pay more, like you say, for quality, and that as a consumer, as a customer, as a guest, that we're happy to pay more for our experiences,
Yeah, no, definitely.
I hope so.
Have you seen, D&D in London?
Yes, of course.
Have you seen them and Caprice both having like training schools?
Yeah, they've started sort of 6-week training schools.
Yeah.
I saw that Simon Rogan
As you don't want to swear,
was doing a similar thing up at Long Clean.
This isn't to take people that have no idea about cooking. I guess this is to take people that maybe like at a Wetherspoons or something that have some chefing experience.
From what I could see when we read into them, and we've spoken about this a lot amongst the team, these fantastic initiatives to try and drive people back into the industry. It was people who were completely green.
Oh, really? Wow.
It was people who had just got a winning smile or a passion for people, which is great, And actually, we wrote an article as a team. The guys wrote an article about alternative labour pools. You think about people who might be completely new to the industry. It really is an alternative labour pool because, okay, no one's ever going to utilise our services to find them someone who's just got that winning smile or just is a people person. But actually, there's a lot of those people out there, and they at a restaurant would have said, well, no, we need experience. Well, why? Because you can't train someone up to do what they need to do. Again, it's that development piece. It's taking someone on and actually they start doing some fairly basic tasks, and we develop them over time. We have regular weekly meetings with them to see where they're getting to, and we get them to a section waiter, and then we train them up. So I think that it was taking people from absolutely base level, and all businesses need to be able to do that, need to be able to take a young person who has a passion for cooking, or a person of any age who has a passion for hospitality and serving people, and be able to get them up to speed to be able to add value to the business. I think it's really, really important.
So in some ways, they'd be diverting the colleges, wouldn't they, to some degree? If you're young and you go on to one of those.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, not everyone believes that going to college for hospitality, for food, to be a chef is the way to go. I'm a huge believer in it, having gone through that path myself. Even with chefing, we spoke earlier on about Liam Dillon. Liam cut his teeth in some fantastic kitchens, but he went through college first. I think it just gives you a good grounding, really. So I'm not necessarily suggesting that one should or shouldn't. Academia is for some people, it's not for others. But the industry should be ready to take a 16-year-old or a 30-year-old who's just gone, do you know what? No, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. But I've never worked a shift in my life. So I'm willing to go in and kind of start again, and we can get that person up to a level of being able to add value to the business, as quickly as we can, really. Be ready to do that.
I guess if you've got that enthusiasm, that's half the battle there, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Some passion, some enthusiasm, some hard work. Often see the 10 sort of points everyone can do, and it's all of those things. Everyone can have passion. Everyone can turn up to work early. Everyone can learn from their mistakes. Everyone can have drive and enthusiasm, and all of these things. They don't. If I'm cleverer than you, those 10 things mean nothing. We've both got the ability to do those things, and I think people forget about that. And let's be honest, hospitality is all about those things.
Yeah.
And being that people person, be that a chip shop, a restaurant, high end, whatever, contract catering. It's wanting to look after people, isn't it?
Yeah, too right. I think it's just there's so many challenges. It's just where do you start? Is it the wages? Is it the hours? Is it just everything? Do people need to start re-looking at everything?
Yeah, I think you need to listen to the voice of your staff. You need to speak to them in a very sort of open, honest forum, be that one-on-one or via a survey. Depends on the size of your team, doesn't it? And their confidence. But yeah, you really need to listen to them about what do they want.
Mm-hmm. I was chatting to a guy the other day, and he's worked in real big hotels. Hotel Royal Mandarin, he's spent a long time doing that. So it's not about, when I say what he says, it wasn't about Hotel Mandarin, it was about another hotel. But he says, the problem is with some of these big organisations is that they do a survey and they think they've just done their bit. That's it. They've just, are you happy here? 1 to 10. Oh yeah, I'm all right. I'm a 9. Okay, we don't have to do anything. And no one wants to say 7 or 6 because, well, I work here. I'm not indicating it's that company.
No, of course.
And I think he just says you actually do have to talk to people, get to the bottom, go walk around the kitchen and say, are you happy here? What could we be doing better?
We spoke about how people be having a hotel, a fast food takeaway, whatever business you've got. We spoke about how we always think about our customer journey.
Yeah.
We're obsessed with it, from the point of booking on the website or phoning. I always used to be really funny about how guys answered the phone in the businesses that I used to run, right through till the end of after service. What about the staff's journey? What about the staff's journey on a daily and a weekly basis? That involves everything, all of those touch points. So I think it's really important to start analysing it and looking at it. And the more people that do it, the more other businesses will have to start doing it. So people.
Well, yeah, because it ups the game, doesn't it?
Of course it does.
Because I think what's probably going to happen now is that with whatever the staff shortages, skill shortages, you name it, people are going to be competing for staff like they are customers.
Yeah.
So, you are going to have to carve out these nicer spaces for staff, let them go have a break, make sure you put them on, if they're really interested, that you do try and train them up to get to the next level.
Totally.
Because no one wants to be a chef de partie forever, do they? And also you see head chefs that want to be executive chefs or move into a different business. So you don't,
or even learn something different. An apprenticeship. So, anyone listening to this should look into the apprenticeship scheme and using the apprenticeship levy that's there, because large businesses pay into that. I think it's if your staff salaries are over £1 million a year, you pay into that. You pay sort of a percentage. I think at last count, when I last had a look at it, there's about £450,000 in this pot.
Wow.
So as a small employer, you can access that and put any of your team on an apprenticeship. And I think so few people know about it. Honestly, still, it's quite criminal that more people aren't using it, because you pay 5% of their training and the rest of the training is made up by that levy. Also, the name apprenticeship almost makes us think about young people. It's like a young thing. It's not at all.
No.
You could put your kitchen porter could be a 60-year-old bloke, right? You could put him on basic culinary skills. He's just learning something. He's doing like a day a month, but he's just learning something. And actually then he can add a bit more value to the business, So I think people should really utilise that. When you talk about development, people should look at that. You should also have an internal development plan. A lot of businesses don't even have a thorough induction. You've got to have a structure to what happens within that induction, that training, when someone exits the business as well.
So say I'm green. I am pretty green to this, yeah? So say I'm opening a restaurant tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tell me what game plan I should have. I'm opening a restaurant. I want to employ the best staff.
Yeah.
And can't just throw money at it. Well, I can. That's one option I've got. But what else do I need to do?
You've got, obviously, if you've got a budget, then you would probably go through your own methods. So obviously, you're going to utilise your social media.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to talk about what is good about that restaurant. So the sustainability of a restaurant, young people are very attracted to. So if you're one of the most, if you're following sustainable practices, that young people are very attracted to that. Anyone who came and we look to take on, I would tell them that we've got a referral scheme. So if they can introduce a friend and that friend starts and stays for 6 months, then they get, a couple of £100 worth of Amazon vouchers, something of that nature. I would just make sure it's a really great place to work. I think you've got to offer, just have a toaster with some bread there for in the morning and some cereals and milk, so that they've just got some breakfast, because a lot of people will just get breakfast, so it's just there. And then you've got to give them one decent, nutritious meal each day as well. You've got to keep their hours down. You've got to make sure that they've got nice changing staff areas. How you then communicate that to people. You ever think of a restaurant that's open that have communicated that? I certainly can't.
Yeah.
They communicate exactly like you just said. It's like we're fighting for customers all the time. Of course we are. We talk about why our product's great and what the service you're going to get. But now we're fighting for staff. We need to talk about those internal procedures and practices as well.
I was talking to a guy who always worked in restaurants, and he went and worked just for a little bit of time in a hotel before he went back to a restaurant. He'd done, 42 hours one week, and HR came to him and said, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm working." He goes, "Go home." And he's like, "No, I'm working still. I'm not finished." They were like, "No, go home. You've been here too long." And
wow.
And he was just shocked by it. He was shocked, and it opened his eyes. A hotel's got a lot more resources than
it has. But again, when I was working in hotels, it was still the expectation that we do a lot of hours. Definitely. But again, we're coming back to who picks up the cost of that.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. I'm not saying that, my approach to it is from a sort of a consultative, it's sort of utopia. how
Yeah.
you would approach it if you could.
Well, yeah, and
we know that commercially that's not.
no,
always-
commercially it's going to be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Commercial, and then hopefully in your mind it comes closer to your way over time.
Yeah, I hope so.
Especially if they want staff. I think if they want staff, like this is going to have to happen. But it's such a shame that I think we all want to say, well, I'm paying this person more, but why isn't their skill level higher, or why isn't their enthusiasm higher? Why But I think that just comes with working with humans. That's just
Of course it does. I mean, there's going to be a variety of passion amongst your team. I suppose we can do what we can to make it a really nice place to work and I suppose give people that passion. That's about employing a great manager and them then motivating and making their team, recruiting the right people where possible, and then making their team as enthusiastic as they can be. But at the end of a double shift, you've done a double the day before. Sometimes that's easier said than done, isn't it?
Unless they do something like what firemen do, like 4 days on, 4 days off.
Well, we spoke about Sat Baines. Sat was one of the first to do
He's doing that,
4 on, 3 off. Massive exponent of some really tasty stuff food as well. So I think people talk about Sat as one of the kind of old school, harder guys to work for. But people that I've spoken to that work for Sat loved working for him.
I've not seen it.
Absolutely loved it. Gareth Ward, who's over at Innisea, he's a hard guy, but he made him what he is. And that's why he's so successful. It's like anyone who's managed by Alex Ferguson in the Man United years when they were successful is going to go, he weren't easy. Neither was Brian Clough in the 80s for Nottingham Forest, but he made us what we are.
Well, it's like
That's why they were so successful.
When I spoke to Stuart Collins, he used to work for Gordon Ramsay, and he says, you knew where you stood with him. You just knew. He'd lose his top if you didn't listen or whatever. But for the most part, he was all right. He wasn't what you saw, that caricature that you saw on TV. Yeah. And I think maybe a lot of people just see that and think, oh, yeah, that's what it's like. But I just think, I'd imagine someone like Sat Baines is a hard person to work for because I'd reckon he's mega focused on what he wants. And, hey, his customers are spending a lot of money to spend the night there or eat there. So he's like, no, I want this to be bloody amazing.
Completely.
So, he knows also that if somebody's spending £400 to be there, I'm guessing, because I've not looked at the menu for a while.
Yeah.
But their expectations are now heightened. It's tripled, quadrupled.
Yeah, of course.
So if it's not extra perfect.
Absolutely. Look, being the best at anything you do, sport, an artist, whatever, that takes massive dedication and absolute focus. There's no difference in the hospitality industry and being a chef. You want to get to the absolute top of being a 5-star hotel or at the 2-3 Michelin star chef. Yeah. That takes everything that you're going to be.
Imagine saying to Alex Ferguson, look, if you're nicer to the team, you'll finish second next year, but they'll be healthier and they'll be happier. I'd imagine he would be like, nah. Yeah. Like you said to Sat Baines, like, don't be so hard on that person. But that dish that person sent out probably isn't going to be as good. We know that, granted. Yeah. And I'm not defending everyone's actions. I'm just saying,
no, completely. But we're saying that
if you're driving to that, and it goes, Formula One is a high, it's a really intense sport. So imagine if that day the guy on the left back wheel just really wasn't feeling it. You know what I mean? And they lost a second, and it was like, but a second is everything in F1, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like, don't be hard on Randy. He's had a bad day. And I think so. I don't know, how do you eke out all of those performance gains and still be nice and cheery, and because you're in the zone, aren't you? I can't imagine what people like Sat Baines and all these people are at, because I'm never at that level.
Yeah, it's finding the balance, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think if people are happy, sort of working there, it's their choice to work there.
Yeah, exactly. They can't go work anywhere else.
A gun to anyone at Sat Baines' kitchen and being like, "You got to come into work today." They do it because they want to be the best. They love it. They respect their chef, their mentor. So yeah, I mean, there's been a lot recently, hasn't there?
There has. But I think there is a lot of this. I think one of those things on Instagram said, "Oh, I was working at Sat Baines' and he came and kicked me on the back of the leg." I worked with my dad for a long time. If I got kicked on the leg, that was like a good day. Yeah. So I'm not defending it, but then some of the other stories about other people, it sounded like GBH and ABH, and actually that is where they should go through the proper channels. And I don't think doing it privately and anonymously or even openly on social media works. I think if it was GBH or ABH, and it was, if it was and it was proven to be, they should go to the police and deal with it properly. In my view,
there's a massive sliding scale here, and I suppose you would speak to some people who would say, absolutely, they're kicking the back of the leg. Even that, absolutely not. And you and I are going, wow, come on, really? One of the things that most people that work in hospitality love is like that bit of banter,
camaraderie,
and that bit of camaraderie. That I'm not saying that comes about by abusing each other, but God, it's just. There's a line here. We've got to be careful.
The fact is, in intense
desensitize it all.
In intense conditions, what gets people off in some ways is heightened. You see that in armies and stuff like that. So, I'm not suggesting that they're saving people's lives or killing people or whatever, but in their world, they are doing something really important. And it is, because it is really important. That is their job. And you said to me before, I think you said before we started the podcast, is come every day like you give a shit.
Yeah. One of our clients, they've got 3 values, and one of it is give a shit every day.
Yeah, that's it. So I'll butcher it. But but the point is that if you feel like that, whether you're working at Sat Baines or McDonald's, just do it amazingly well. My niece worked at McDonald's. I joke with her and I say, like, oh, well, you're on drinks duty. And she's like, yeah, but you don't realise how hard it is. I have to make sure it's banging out those drinks. Because
well, you were talking about sending the samples out, with your
exactly,
and like doing it right. We do it here.
So
we're constantly looking.
We say that on one angle. I mean society's a generation. Do your best. But then it's like, don't accept that little tap on the leg. Like, So you can't be everything, can you? And I think that's how tricky this situation is.
It is. It's a really fine line, and it's quite it's a difficult one to navigate. A lot of people are going to have different opinions, and I think you just got to kind of listen to everyone and be fair, I suppose.
Yeah. Like you said, though, I think the main thing is no one is holding a gun to your head. Anywhere you work where you feel like you're being treated unfairly, just hand your notice and go work somewhere else where you feel like you'll be treated better, because no one, and that's where you come in, like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, if someone's created that culture where they run that business like the army through fear, that's their choice to do that. That's your choice to work there. That's the choice of the football manager to do it that way. I think within, again, being sort of fair, physical abuse is never going to be tolerated. But if someone is a bit of a screamer and a shouter, and that's the way they manage their team, that's the way their team responds to them, then get on board with it or don't, kind of thing. I think, we were talking before we started the podcast. I think, especially in these top-end kitchens, it's like just kind of... It is what it is now. Someone's going to listen to this and go, God, we should be breaking down the status quo, and we should be, making these places more approachable workspaces. I completely agree with that. But if someone has to keep this level of intensity to perform day in, day out, we're going back, it could be a sport, it could be a kitchen, it could be whatever they're doing. I think there's got to be an element of kind of like pushing, fear factor and pushing, and like it's hard.
To be completely devil's advocate, like, look at me, I'm a bit of a lard ass. So when I was at school, I was slow, But my teacher said, Stel, you've got to do 100 metres, mate. You've got to. And I'm like, look at me. Like, I'm never going to do this as a career. I'm not going to be in the Olympics. And I'm not even going to make it to that 100-metre line. And he's like, no, you've got to do it. So I do it, Did I get a medal? No. I got what you call ridicule, That's what it is, because I knew that was going to happen. Yeah. But I think after I went to school, and I'm not trying to make out for 1 minute that people after us came soft. It's not. But there was this... Let's not shame people. Everyone should get a medal. Now, can you have that attitude if you're driving? Again, if we use Sat Baines as an example, if he's trying to be the best restaurant in the world or the UK, can he have this attitude where it's like, look, I know that plate you just put out was crap. Don't worry, son.
No, because you cannot. You cannot tolerate,
because the diner who's spending £400 a head or whatever, £200 a head or whatever it is, ain't going to be like, you know what, Sat or whoever, I'm really glad that you didn't tell that person off for giving me a really shit plate of food. Like, and maybe not really shit. It's never going to be that extreme.
I know what you mean. A mistake. A mistake. That we're talking about that absolute kind of top end here, aren't we? I suppose if you looked at much lower levels of the industry, where we're not talking about working to these absolute minutiae details. It's when these kitchens, to me, and we keep coming back to kitchens because it's kind of notoriously spoken about, but it's when they become these tough places to work, which really, I don't really get that. It's like they've watched, say, Gordon Ramsay on TV, and they think that that's the way to manage people.
But if it was like that, guests would hear it, surely. Like,
I've heard it, though.
Oh, have you? Okay.
I've heard it in
All
kitchen.
Right, okay.
I've heard it coming from kitchen.
As a diner?
as a director.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah, I've never had that.
Yeah. I'm not going to name that.
No, of course not. No, of course not. I wouldn't want that either. Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. And I've known, I mean, and there are horror stories out there, which is a shame. Because look, we come back to this, the last thing that we need is anyone being put off entering our industry.
My experience very recently. So, last year, a couple of years ago, I went to Adam's to do a podcast with him, and we were sitting downstairs in his kitchen. You can see it was the dining room downstairs in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And you couldn't tell there was a team of 12, 15 people working there.
So quiet.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there and we're talking like we are now.
Yeah.
And I said to him, why is it so quiet? Because it's always like this. He goes, they're talking. He goes, but they're just not bellowing at each other. There's no shouting. It's just talking. And I said, what if you need to shout? He goes, well, if they need to, they need to. Obviously, there's a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
But it just struck me as...
Yeah, I know. I mean, I remember watching El Bulli, seeing them work. It's crazy, But it's a calm. Everyone knows what they're doing.
Yeah, he said, look, because I don't really shout at people. He goes, but I will show them things constantly. And he just goes, that's just me. He goes, everyone's different.
Yeah.
Everyone's, and he doesn't slate anybody.
No, he's very good.
Yeah,
he's very good.
I went to eat at his oyster restaurant, the Oyster Bar, and again we were sitting downstairs, not far from the kitchen. Couldn't hear anything.
Yeah.
Could not hear anything. And I always listen out for stuff like that. And there was no, even the way you walk through the doors, there was no,
totally.
But again, same thing. You go to a McDonald's, you don't hear them screaming at each other.
No, there's a lot of hustle and bustle in there, but absolutely.
And they've got 260 seconds to get your food sorted. There's no, I don't want to denigrate anybody that's had a bad experience either. Because obviously that could be real, but if it is, the chef was being a bit of a div because I did something wrong, then that is probably going to be very common. So maybe this isn't the industry for you.
Yeah.
Not to say, that's how it always has to be. You might find a chef who is a bit more chilled and says, you know what, that's pretty cool. We're right with that. So anything you want to finish with, mate?
I suppose I'd like to, anyone listening to this, I'd like them to encourage them to support their local, colleges, their hospitality colleges, their food colleges. We've got some fantastic ones up and down the country that I think if you can, if you're someone who's in the industry, if you could give you time to go and talk, or just to see how you can support them, I think that's absolutely essential, that we all get behind these institutions now, and really just give them what we can.
Yeah. Before we do finish, I would like to know a little bit more about your chef initiative. Because that's something that I saw on your website today, and I know I've seen it on your social media feeds. But what was the reasoning behind it, and what do you hope to sort of learn from it?
To be honest, Stel, here in Birmingham, we didn't have a networking group for hospitality. There's a couple in Manchester. There were a number of them in London. I always get annoyed if here in Birmingham we haven't got something that those other cities have got. I'm like, why haven't we got that? So we just set it up, really. Because my mama came up with the idea for the name, and it was just us getting together to talk and share best practice. We've had some fantastic speakers over time. The first session we had Johnny Smith, who started Clove Club at the time. It was the 35th best restaurant in the world. Started it with supper clubs in Shoreditch and grew Clove Club. I mean, for me, it's 2-star quality, but it's got 1-star Michelin. It's in Shoreditch Town Hall. Beautiful, beautiful restaurant. They've opened another couple of restaurants since. Brilliant guy, so interesting. Came and we never pay anyone. We pay their travel, but we never pay anyone. We've had Emma Underwood, who used to work at Where the Light Gets In. She was running Derby's at the time, one of Robin Gill's restaurants. A wonderful manager, a fantastic GM. Great to see such a successful young lady in the industry coming to talk to people. So that just provided a forum, really, to get together. We don't charge for it. People that give us their spaces, we've held it here at the Tonic offices previously, but we've held it at Hotel de Van, at the Burlington Hotel, at the Plough in Harbour. They give us the space. They're very generous with the space and maybe a bite to eat, tea and coffee. And we all just get together and we talk best practice. We talk about industry issues. We have very relaxed, open networking. Since that point, the Institute of Hospitality Midlands branch has been resurged. We spoke about Steve, who's the secretary for that, Steve Loughlin, which is great to see. And I'm a massive supporter of that, and I want to really get behind. And I think the two can sit together. It's not us and them at all. I was just much more relaxed. come and go, no membership, what have you. But we absolutely put our weight behind the institute as well. So, yeah, it's something that I enjoy doing. You know, you can tell, you and I both know I like to talk to people and I like to bring people together. I'm very passionate about the industry. So all of those things really.
I think one that I know about you is, and I don't know you, I know you well enough, but not as well as others, mate. But you throw yourself into whatever you do.
Yeah,
massively.
absolutely.
Like, you know, there's no half-heartedness. It's all or nothing. And
Yeah.
So I think you're probably a type of guy that you're a fake it till you make it guy. Maybe you push yourself, all that enthusiasm, you got all that effort, whether it was fish and chips, whether it's, you know, or this, and you know what, you become it. It becomes you.
Totally. Yeah. I think, you know, we were talking earlier about just being the best you can be.
Yeah.
And I very much think I wasn't academic at all. You know, I wasn't academic. But in all of my jobs, I spoke about car cleaning from like age 11. I'd want to clean that car like the best I could clean it, you know. And I suppose I've gone round and I've always, I suppose because I found hospitality, I just loved it. I loved washing up in pubs when I was a 14-year-old, you know, as a female head chef. She was quite good looking as well. The banter in the kitchen was great. It was like wicked. I just loved it.
Yeah.
I loved working. I don't know.
There's something about the confidence that working in that environment gives you.
Yeah.
Once you get through the hazing period and you start to become a bit of like, you know, you get the job done right, that's when they respect you. Because I think one thing I've realised in kitchens and hospitality is it doesn't matter your age, it's ability. It's all about ability.
Totally.
If you're doing a 10 out of 10 every time, whether you're 14 or 40, people respect you the same way.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I learned early on in the fish and chip business with my family, is that if you did the job, it didn't matter what age you were.
No.
And I think it goes back to, you know, if people got that bite, if they enjoyed that and they worked in hospitality and put that effort in and got that result, I think they'd be stuck to it. They'd love it, in my view.
Yeah, I agree. I really do.
Well, Conrad, on that note, I'll let you go. Carry on doing your people moving.
Cheers, buddy.
Thank you, mate, for your time.
Thank you.
Huge thanks to Conrad for joining me on the Ceres podcast. If you want to follow Conrad, jump over to all his socials. I'll link to them in the show notes. I know you're all busy, but you know, it takes a split second to share what we're up to here. So if you see any post from us, just share them, because chances are, if you're listening to this, your peers will like it too. You know, so if you can send it them or share it, however it is that you want to do, every little bit of support helps. This episode wouldn't have been possible without our show supporters, Giovanna Grossi and Amanda Affia of Source Intelligence Mystery Guest Audits, well known for their commitment to the hospitality sector and those working in it. Their business offers a range of bespoke training programs tailored to your operations' individual training needs. So, you know what? Stop messing around. Just visit sourceintelligence.com today. Support us by supporting our sponsors. And the Ceres podcast is brought to you by Ceres Pure Food Innovation.